Les Spellman is an expert on speed. He learned through personal pain.
I think I was pretty hard-headed growing up.
Fantasy football players and those who want to learn more about it can enjoy some tips from an expert.
I really like going after those running backs because they're going to be the foundation of your team.
And Norman Powell shares the story of how he made it from Lincoln High Hornet to NBA champion.
My mom raised me and my two older sisters by herself, and my uncle came in and really filled that father role for me.
All that right now on Inside San Diego Sports.
Go.
Baseball writers have elected you to the Hall of Fame.
Put in that corner, you either survive or you die.
Hi everybody, I'm Mike Pomeranz and thanks for watching Inside San Diego Sports. We begin with the story of a near tragedy that led to a livelihood. Les Spellman almost lost his ability to walk after a horrific car accident, but he persevered through his rehab and now he teaches Olympic hopefuls, NFL players, and other professional athletes how to be faster. Lessons he learned on his road to recovery.
They said a wise man doesn't learn from their own mistakes, they learn from other people's mistakes. You have to change yourself, and then you change your family, then your community, and then you can affect the world. I'm Les Spellman. I'm a speed coach, and Spellman Performance is a speed-based training company where we focus on performance for all types of athletes. I don't think I ever really imagined it going this far. Like at first, it was just a passion. It was just something I wanted to do on my own. And then it kept growing and kept growing.
Like many kids, Les Spellman had a passion for sports and dreamed of having an athletic future. But one day, that dream came to an unexpected halt.
Kind of went down the wrong path. I started hanging out with the wrong people and doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and all of a sudden I got in a car accident that broke my femur.
They said that my son had been airlifted to Washington Hospital and that I needed to get over there right away.
The doctors told her that I broke my femur and I wouldn't be able to run again.
The best that we had hoped for was that he would walk, but with a limp, but he would never be an athlete again. And I could just see this look in his eyes that was not going to be his history.
I was pretty hard-headed growing up, so at first it was just like a reaction, like, no, I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. Once I got like one step further and got out of bed or started walking on the stroller, I was like, okay, wait, maybe this is possible. And in the process of learning how to walk and how to jog and how to run, I started to figure out, okay, there is another level, this is possible.
He's always been an extremely determined, focused person, but I don't think he could see this big picture.
Despite the odds, Les found himself not only walking again, but running. And with perseverance, Les began playing sports again.
I walked on to Temple, and the way that I did it is I walked in my coach's office with a black eye. I was like, hey, look, I've been boxing, I broke my femur, I've never run track before, but I want to try out. And he was like, absolutely not. There's no way, like, you have no experience doing this. Eventually, he was like, you know what, Les, like, you're persistent, you're here every day, like, you could try out, but you're gonna have to run 4 miles consistent. As I got to the end of college, I started to kind of understand biomechanically, like, what my body needed to do or how I needed to train to get faster. And then after college is when it all kind of started coming into play.
Having overcome his physical challenges, Les used his knowledge and experience to build something greater than himself.
I saw there was a gap in the market. There wasn't too many people teaching speed. There was like strength coaches, there were skill coaches, but nobody was really teaching running to athletes outside of track. And it's kind of like swimming. If you go and swim, the first thing they teach you is the technique of swimming. If you play water polo, the first thing they're going to teach you is how to swim. But when you go play soccer, they don't teach you how to run first. So I dived into books, I dived into podcasts, papers, studies, everything I could find on running. Every single article I could find. I found the most basic things that I could teach, and then I found a simpler way of teaching it, and I started teaching that to very, very, very young kids. So long story short, those very, very young kids ended up being Division I, Olympic, NFL, and I realized, I think the gap is you have to teach very difficult things simply.
Les began teaching and changing lives for many types of athletes through speed development.
We have a good mix of athletes today. We have our Olympic crew, and then we have our NFL free agent crew, and we have our college crew.
In my personal career, I want to make it to the Olympics in 2020 for Tokyo, and I want a medal. I want to have a gold medal around my neck.
My goal is to already qualify for rugby for 2020 Olympics. It's to get in the track and field as well and to medal.
I hope to get to the highest level of football, which is the NFL.
Football is a game of speed at my position as a wide receiver.
My personal goal would be to get faster and stronger.
I choose to train at Spelman Performance because I like the atmosphere, I like the positivity, and I like that he has the mentality of working hard.
I started training with Les, telling him that I just wanted to work on my speed, and that's what we've been solely working on for me, and it's been great.
Les pushes us, and all his other trainers, as co-workers, they push us too, so it's just fun out here, and we get better every day.
The way he teaches and all the things and how detailed he is, I feel like I'm getting there.
I've seen progress in every form of my game so far, so it's been really good work.
Pretty much every athlete we see, it's like we become instant fans. We train them and then we watch them and then we become huge fans of theirs. So it's pretty cool.
So up and over, coming back to the ground. Make sure the foot is traveling backwards on contact.
We care about every single athlete that comes into our environment, and we invest as much time and energy as we can into them. Our philosophy is always go deeper than we go wide. So we'd rather train one person 100% than 100 people 1%. So what we started doing is just investing as much as we could into each athlete, and with the goal in mind that they would become the best they could be. People come to us and like, all right, make me faster, and they think it's some quick fix, like pill, and I'm like, we're not magical. And I think the beauty and the magic is in the reps. And we always say, take 1,000 reps of this before you get it right. 1,000 reps will actually teach you more than I could ever teach you. There's only 3 things that make someone faster, and that's improving their time on the ground, improving their time in the air, and improving their step lane. Those are the only 3 characteristics that go into running as far as time. If you keep it simple, we want to get off and on the ground fast. We want to minimize how much time we spend in the air, and we want to maximize how far each step is. And if you keep those 3 principles in mind, there's 1,000 different techniques that can get you there. We happen to have one that works pretty well.
As Spelman Performance continues to grow, so does Les's love for coaching.
For me, it was a personal journey at first, learning how to walk, learning how to run. And through that process, I learned discipline, I learned how to focus on my goals, I learned how to dream and create a vision and then go after it. And now it's like I have that opportunity to give that to people every day. So it means everything. I think our biggest thing that we preach is inspiration. So if I inspire one kid and that one kid inspires 1 million people, then we've done our job. And that's always been the goal.
Up next, learn about fantasy football and some tips for this year's draft.
Almost every season, especially now that the NFL is such a passing league, quarterback is almost always going to be the deepest position.
And later, Lincoln High's Norman Powell returns as a conquering hero, an NBA champion, as Inside San Diego Sports continues. Welcome back. Fantasy football players, take note. These are the 10 guys you should consider picking first in your draft, according to TJ Hernandez of 4for4.com. Why no quarterbacks? That's just one of the questions San Diego's national fantasy football expert TJ Hernandez can answer for you. He's part of the $7 billion fantasy sports world that has more than 59 million participants. It's a place where you're the owner and you're also the general manager of your own team.
I have a background in poker analytics. That's actually what I started doing right after college, playing poker full time. A couple of years ago, 2011 actually, I got into daily fantasy sports. It was really natural transition for me after poker to fantasy football. And I was lucky enough to actually know some people that transitioned from poker to fantasy themselves, and they had introduced me into some people that were actually involved with 4for4. 4for4.com is a fantasy projections website that also lets you customize everything for your own league settings. So it's a very customizable projection and rankings website. And what separates us from some of these major sites is we've actually been among the most accurate. If you compare us to any of the major projection sites, we've been the most accurate since 2010. It's somebody that's never played fantasy football before, you fill out a roster pretty much like you would a regular football team: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Your standard league is going to be what's called a redraft league. So it's a snake draft. The person with the first pick, they have the last pick in the second round, and then from there there's different scoring settings. Pretty much the standard scoring is you're going to get 4 points for touchdowns for your quarterbacks, 6 points for touchdowns from all other positions, and then for quarterbacks it's usually 20 or 25 yards per point. For all the other positions, rushing and receiving, it's 10 yards per point. Regardless of what your league is or where your point settings are, Saquon Barkley is my #1 guy this year. It's just, he's going to touch the ball as much as anybody in the league. That 20 touch number for your running backs per game is kind of that magical number, and when the Giants are looking to get the ball to somebody, it's going to be to Saquon Barkley. He accounts for almost half of their offense, and you're not going to find that with any other player. You're kind of handcuffed into what your strategy is going to be based on where you're drafting in your league. So if you do have those early picks, top 4, top 5, I really like going after those running backs because they're going to be the foundation of your team. Once you get past those first 4 or 5 guys, I actually prefer the safety of the wide receivers because they're targeted so much in their offenses that they're actually going to be safer over the course of the season than some of these second-tier running backs that you'll find in there. Once you get past, say, the 4th round is when you're really going to have, no matter what position you're drafting, you're definitely going to have some question marks. So that's when you're really going to see some of these average draft positions start shifting, and when you could really start targeting guys that you might be higher on that your league might not be. Almost every season, especially now that the NFL is such a passing league, quarterback is almost always going to be the deepest position. The way fantasy football scoring works, it isn't always perfectly reflective of real football. So yes, quarterback's the most important position in real football. In fantasy football, all of the scoring is very tight. So outside of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you're going to find very similar fantasy scoring from maybe the 4th or 5th guy in your league all the way down to the 20th. So what that allows you to do, it allows you to really wait on the position. So where other people in your league might be taking the quarterback in the 4th, 5th round, you could wait till the double-digit rounds, till the 12th, 13th round, and get value from that player and really stock up on those more scarce positions, the running back and wide receivers, where you're really winning your league. You could continue to load up on them while your other league mates draft quarterbacks. So what I'm looking for with sleepers, I'm looking for guys that could fall into opportunity that wasn't there before, or a new situation that could really benefit a player. So starting with the latter, a new situation that I think could really benefit a player, D.D. Westbrook for the Jacksonville Jaguars, their wide receiver. He's their main slot wide receiver, and the slot position is a spot that Nick Foles has actually targeted a lot in his career. Nick Foles coming over from the Eagles to the Jaguars, a guy that was hyped the previous season. If he doesn't perform as well as people might think he was gonna, often he becomes a value. One of those guys is Trey Burton. The Chicago Bears were an offense that a lot of people were excited about last year with Mitch Trubisky and their new head coach Matt Nagy. And Trey Burton did finish as a top 10 tight end last year, but he wasn't somebody that I think fantasy owners were rolling out on a consistent basis because he was so inconsistent. Because he was hyped last year and didn't perform, I think he's someone that people might be sleeping on a little bit this year. Often with rookies, what we often see is it comes down to positions. Certain positions are going to perform well, other positions aren't. Those positions that generally struggle are wide receivers. It just takes them a long time to get acclimated to the NFL. Quarterbacks, it's kind of a mixed bag. What I'm looking for is a quarterback that has the ability to rush. Kyler Murray really stands out. And then, of course, running backs, they often transition really quickly to the NFL. Josh Jacobs is going to have a chance to maybe approach 300 touches with the Raiders. So he's a guy that if he's there in the 3rd or 4th round, you could draft him pretty confidently as well. Draft day is usually the biggest day of the year for a lot of football fans, and then we only have 17 weeks to enjoy it. So prepare for draft day, have fun, and then enjoy those 17 weeks because it goes by really quick. I hope this information helped out a lot, and good luck winning your league in 2019.
Up next, a Lincoln High Hornet comes home with some impressive hardware.
I thought it was most fitting, to bring the most prized possession that I've won in my basketball career back home to where it all started.
Norman Powell shares his story as Inside San Diego Sports continues. Welcome back. Toronto Raptors guard Norman Powell recently returned to his high school to share the NBA's championship trophy with friends and fans. Powell, who won a CIF state title at Lincoln High in 2010, then moved into the gym for a photo op with his two favorite trophies.
My state championship right here. It's amazing, man. It's a blessing to be able to bring this back home, for the community to see it and to share it with them, because I shared my first championship with them, so it's only right.
For Norman Powell, it was a rocky path from the gym at Lincoln High to an NBA championship. Along the way, he learned to be humble, and now he's helping San Diego's youth to understand that they too can reach the stars if they learn to understand the grind.
We out here, let's go.
Norman Powell had already planned to return to Lincoln High, as he does every year, to host his annual basketball camp.
What's your defensive stance look like? Show me that stance, there we go.
But this year, the Toronto Raptors guard was able to bring a surprise guest, the NBA championship trophy.
It's all about motivation, being a positive role model for the younger generation.
Growing up in Southeast San Diego, Norman had two positive role models.
My mom raised me and my two older sisters by herself, and my uncle came in and really filled that father role for me, showing me what a man's responsibilities are.
Norman and his two older sisters were encouraged to make the most of what they had. Sharon taught them a pathway to success.
Visualizing, writing down your goal, like this is where I want to be in this time frame or that time frame, and he always said, tough times don't last, tough people do.
Those lessons were translated into a mantra that Norman and his high school buddies came up with. It was understand the grind, which is Norman's brand to this day.
We're going to analyze, we're going to reevaluate how to attack this barrier, how we're going to go through it, over it, around it, but the barrier is not going to stop us.
For Norman, one of those barriers in high school was academics. At times, his focus on basketball got in the way of his studies, but Sharon would step in and take him off the court when grades faltered.
It's always academics first. The expectation down here is you are not an adult until you have a bachelor's degree.
She could care less about basketball. She just wanted them to have great grades, and that was the great job that she did as a mom, and that was how he was able to graduate with over 3.0.
He didn't make the varsity until his sophomore year, and then he spent most of that season on the bench.
Kind of arrogant, but I had big aspirations and dreams for myself, and I was very confident, and I felt that like I'm gonna make it.
He thought he knew more than we did, and I think he humbled himself and still remained confident during that time, and that was how he was able to be successful.
Norman began receiving acclaim his junior season when he helped lead the Hornets to the section championship.
He got up! Statement dunk!
I had told Norman, come talk to me when you're the top kid in the state, because there are 50 states and all of these kids. And when Norman became #2 in the state, I was like, oh my God. And he remembered, and he came back and he talked to me.
They spoke about basketball as a future, which was okay with Sharon as long as Norman earned a bachelor's degree. So he went to UCLA, studied history, and played basketball. But just like high school, by his sophomore year, he wasn't playing much. It was time to live by his motto and truly understand the grind to answer his many questions.
How am I gonna get to the next level? Am I gonna, do like most players do, after their first 2 years in college, transfer to a different school to make the situation a little easier for you? Or are you gonna sit down, work harder, be more focused, and see how you can improve yourself and not take the blame game?
The grind continued under UCLA coach Ben Howland, who didn't give Norman the playing time he felt he deserved. When Howland was replaced by Steve Alford in 2013, Norman eventually grew into the team's top scorer and an all Pac-12 selection.
The authoritative finish!
Coach Howland helped me lock in defensively and make me the defensive player that I am today, and Coach Alford elevated my offensive game and really let me play and be myself, and helped me with my leadership skills.
Those skills earned him invitations to a number of NBA tryouts, but his workout for the Toronto Raptors was different.
It was a weird feeling, looking around the city before walking into the hotel, like this is home, and I did an amazing job in that workout.
Powell was drafted 46th overall by the Milwaukee Bucks and then traded to Toronto. The Raptors were learning how to understand the grind, In Powell's first 3 seasons, they'd made the Eastern Conference Finals every year and lost all 3.
The guys that we have are all underdogs and have the dog mentality of working through the obstacles, working through the challenges to overcome them, and I think this organization has always been about that.
In 2019, the Raptors won it all, the NBA title. Norman's top fan would not have missed it.
I was there, and I rode on the float with him in the parade. It's just been fantastic.
Norman wanted to share his joy with friends and family and continue sending his message to the kids and adults where he grew up.
Got my state championship right here. It's amazing, man. It's a blessing to be able to bring this back home, you know, for the community to see it and to share it with them, because I shared my first championship with them, so it's only right.
To be able to win a state championship here in high school, 2 CIFs, to be able to win the Pac-12 and you know, make a Sweet 16, you know, in NCAAs and to win the NBA championship and still be humble enough to come back and share that with the community free of charge. I mean, that speaks volumes about his character.
I love it. Decked out, baby. VC. What's up, baby? What's up, man? How you doing, man? Thanks for coming out. There's no limit that people can put on you. You know, the only limit that can be put on you is the limits that you put on yourself.
No limits at all if, like Norman Powell, you understand and embrace the grind. Well, thanks to Norman, his coaches, and his mother Sharon for helping make San Diego a better place. Well, that's all the time we have for now, but we hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of Inside San Diego Sports.